Today I'm bringing you guys my full review of the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge. Now I spent a lot of time on this review. It took me a while to push it out, about 3 weeks, mainly because I wanted to make sure I gave you guys some great impressions and a full sort of treatment of the phone in terms of battery life, camera, etc. This is also going to be my first video ever shot in 4K. I picked up a new camera, the Sony a6300, which I'm shooting this intro with, which I shot all of the footage for this video with. So I really hope you guys enjoy the 4K. We're going to try to step it up this year on the channel. Definitely give me any feedback on the video, on the audio, as I'm trying to step some things up in terms of the overall quality. Now, as usual, if you're new to the channel or if you're a returning subscriber, there will be an outline below in the description. This is definitely going to be a long video, so you can check out the outline, skip around to whatever you want to know about camera, battery life, display quality. You can find everything about this phone below. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. I really appreciate you guys checking it out. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the build of the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge. So starting off with the S7 Edge, you can see that you've got those beautiful curved edges for the edge screen, just like we had with the S6 Edge and the S6 Edge Plus. But one thing that Samsung did is they added these curves on the back as well, which makes it much easier to hold compared to the Galaxy Note 5. Now, you wouldn't think that something like this would make such a huge difference, but it actually makes the phone feel smaller, easier to hold in the hand, and overall just less sharp than its predecessor. I definitely give Samsung credit for refining the design of the phone and overall giving it a nice feel without really doing too much to the overall fit and finish that we all love from last year. Now, another thing that you'll notice is that the camera sits relatively flush on the back of the phone, as you can see right here. That is, of course, an improvement from last year, which had a relatively large camera bump, which many people didn't like because it makes it very difficult to type when you have the phone on a table. Now, the phone is made of all metal and glass construction, so it is quite fragile. I actually posted some pictures over on Twitter of my friend's S7 Edge that he dropped on the ground. It shattered quite badly on the back of the phone as well as on the edge display. But if you put a case on it, you're not going to have any problems at all. Of course, you can get several minimal cases that don't obscure the design of the phone. I have several examples of those on my channel, including those from Spigen and VRS Design. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge is they are dust and water resistant. You can actually put this guy underwater in up to 6 feet of water for about 30 minutes. I did take the phone and run it under a faucet to wipe off some of the sticker residue when I got the phones, and it actually survived very, very well. So overall, the build of this phone is beautiful. I love it. I think Samsung did a great job of refining it without really doing anything too crazy to change what we all liked last year. Of course, the smaller Galaxy S7 also has similar features, except for it does not have the edge screen around front. If you're a person who needs a smaller phone or you have relatively small hands, you'll definitely enjoy the Galaxy S7 proper, as it has a 5.1-inch screen. It's much easier to hold, and it retains those curves on the back, which makes this phone feel even smaller than it actually is. You definitely have the flush camera, all of the other great features, including the dust and water resistance. Overall, I would say the Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge are probably the best designed smartphones that I've seen in quite some time. So the next thing I want to talk about with the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge is the storage. And the storage is actually a pretty interesting story on these two particular phones. Now, normally we don't really talk about storage as a separate topic, but this year Samsung brought back the micro SD slot. So you can see right there at the very top of the phone, you've got your micro SD slot along with your SIM slot. Now, of course, that's important because on the Galaxy S6, we did not have the micro SD slot, and a lot of people clamored for that to return. But of course, you only have 32 gigabyte options for the initial purchase of the phone, at least in the US, which leads to some storage concerns. If you take a look at my phone here, I have 13.37 gigabytes of 32 gigabytes left. Now, I've loaded up quite a few of my apps. You can also see here I have a 64 gigabyte external SD card. Now there is one additional thing to talk about. Because it has such limited storage out of the box and there is no 64 gigabyte variant in the US yet, one thing that you might want to do is take your SD card and turn that into adoptable storage. Now on Marshmallow, that allows your SD card here to be adopted as part of the internal storage, and then you can seamlessly transfer it over for apps, etc. Now I did show a tutorial on how to do this. If you want to check that out, I'll link it below in the description. But there are several reasons that you might not want to do this, not least of which is some apps like Google Play Music, for instance, if I can bring that up. Google Play Music does not like to play nicely with adoptable storage. And what I mean by that is, on adoptable storage, Google Play Music will not save your songs directly to the SD card, which is what you would like to have happen. Instead, it's going to save all of your songs directly to the true internal storage. So that's something to keep in mind. Spotify does the same thing. I also had some other people mention this about some other external apps like Maps apps, GPS tracking apps that save offline maps to the true internal storage and not the SD card. But if you want to try adoptable storage, it is an option. If not, you can just use the portable external storage like I have here. You'll be able to save your songs, your photos, etc. It's definitely very convenient. I've turned my 32 gigabyte S7 Edge into a 96 gigabyte S7 Edge. Essentially, as long as you use a lot of media, that's going to be fantastic. Next, I want to talk about the battery life on the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge. Starting off with the larger of the two phones, you can see here, I've been using the phone today, pretty low usage since I got it off the charger. 27 minutes and 28 seconds time on for the screen, and I've only drained 11% of my battery. Now if you project that out, you're going to be looking at about 4.5 to 5 hours of use depending on what you're doing. Today I was watching some YouTube videos, etc. And actually I've noticed that in general I can get between 5 to 5.5 hours pretty consistently on the S7 Edge. Now that is using a few of my power saving tips. You guys can see one of the tips I'm using here, which is to use the Material Black theme. If you guys didn't check out my top 9 tips video, I'll link that below. These black themes do save you some energy on the AMOLED screens. And also if you use a darker wallpaper, you see I have the same wallpaper here on my home screen, and also on my lock screen I have the black wallpaper. That of course will save you some power. Now I've tested the battery life with the always on display on versus off. You see I have it turned off right now. That's just my preference. But the always on display drains about 0.5% battery life per hour. So of course, if you don't remember, you can go into the display options and you can toggle that on and off right here under the always on display. You can go ahead and turn that on. And then of course you'll have the time always on the front of your screen. Now you can change the backgrounds, etc. But using the darkest background possible is key to save some battery. So the always on display, not a huge battery drain, but it will save you a little bit if you turn it off. In addition, I've noticed that charging is very, very fast on the phone. It does not have, of course, USB 3.0 fast charging. It does have Quick Charge 2.0 actually, and it's still very, very fast though. You get about an hour to an hour, maybe an hour charging it on the regular charger. And then if you're going to charge it on the fast wireless charger, which is another option, you're going to get it in about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. You'll get a full charge for your phone, which is super fast. If you use a regular wireless charger, you're not going to get very fast speeds. I use my Tilt View, my Chotec regular charger, and the ones that are not fast wireless charger, you're looking at about maybe 3 hours even, depending on the charger. And that does seem like a long time. I've actually been wanting to do some tests because it does seem to take longer for these phones to charge on a regular wireless charger than the Note 5 and the Edge Plus, which I found a little bit strange. So overall, very good battery life in my opinion. If you can get 5 hours battery life out of your phone, that's pretty impressive. Just to give you an idea of my usage, I was using this for YouTube. You see I also have a black background for my app drawer using Nova Launcher. I was using YouTube, Netflix, social media, Dropbox to download and sync files for work, listening to play music. It was also paired to my Moto 360 right here and my LG Tone Infinim Bluetooth headset. So 5 hours, very, very solid battery life in my opinion. If we turn to the smaller sibling here, the Galaxy S7, I was able to get about 3.5 to 4 hours consistently on the Galaxy S7. Of course, once again, using those battery saving tips that I mentioned. You have the Material Black theme once again, as I showed you guys earlier, which is a great battery saving tip. And overall, I think I just charged this phone today, so you can't really see much in here. Overall, I think that's pretty good battery life when you compare it to last year, the S6, the S6 Edge. I could barely get 2.5 to 3 hours out of that phone before I needed to recharge it. If you charge this with the fast wireless charger, it's going to recharge very, very quickly, probably 55 minutes to an hour. If you use the wireless fast charger, probably get this one charged in about an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes. And of course, again, very, very slow if you use a standard wireless charger. You just don't want to do that unless you're at the office, etc. So I was actually very impressed with the battery life on both of these phones. I did similar testing, obviously, with all the Bluetooth devices I mentioned being paired to both, and I ran them over several days because, again, it took me 3 weeks to push out this review. So if you guys have any questions about battery life, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them about my usage or about your experience and what you might be able to do to improve it. But overall, very, very impressive from Samsung this year. Next, I want to get into the display quality on the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge. Now, the S7 and the S7 Edge have one of the nicest, if not definitely the nicest, display I've seen in Android or in any smartphone ever. I mean, these are very, very impressive displays. Now, of course, that's going to depend on your personal preferences for color saturation. These AMOLED panels are incredibly saturated panels. You can see the colors on my icon pack. This is the Glim Dark icon pack, by the way. A lot of people have asked about that. The colors really pop on the icons. You can see against the black background. It just looks beautiful, and I really like that saturated look. I also like the fact that the blacks are just so incredibly black. You don't have any like gray tones or any grayscale looking blacks. Overall, you can sort of see the subtlety still. You have here a gray, here a dark black, but that definitely helps you save power when you're using always on display, etc. This is a very, very nice way to get extra battery life, having the AMOLED panel. It helps with the always-on display. I think the LG G5 is probably going to drain more battery with the always-on display because it's using LCD. But again, if you don't like saturated colors, you may not like it. But overall, I just love the picture quality and overall watching media, watching Netflix, anything that I've done with this display, I've been happy with it. I can show you guys how some of the colors sort of pop. If you hear some pasta, some pictures I took, maybe I can take a look at a few others here that we'll talk about the camera a little more in a little while. But anything like beautiful wallpapers like this one right here, salad, just anything that you're going to take a picture of, the picture and the quality really pops off the screen on the AMOLED panel. Now, of course, the same can be said for the smaller brother. You guys can see this beautiful Galaxy wallpaper that I have right here on the S7. And the picture quality on this one is similarly great. I think the S7, of course, was rated overall as having the best overall display because it does have the flat panel. The Edge panel on the side does give you slightly worse viewing angles because you got a little more glare there, a little more reflectivity. But overall, that's not a huge problem. And I'd say that if you're just using the untrained naked eye, they look very, very similar, very beautiful saturated colors and deep blacks. So I really like the display on both phones, definitely a win. The next thing is the speaker quality, and that's a place where both of these phones sort of, I don't know, they sort of have a weakness in that because the phone is water resistant, you have a seal down here around the speakers, and of course the speaker being on the bottom of the phone, it's already not the ideal placement, and we know that. The speaker being on the front is ideal, but here the Note 5 also had a speaker on the bottom, but the S7 Edge is actually a little more muffled, not quite as loud as the Note 5, and that is because of the water resistant feature that you have on the S7 Edge. Overall, I think it's plenty loud and clear for watching media, but if you're someone who wants to use your phone as a boombox, you want to use it to be your primary music player, that's probably not something you want to do with the S7 Edge, and its smaller brother, very, very similar. It also has the water resistant feature. They both have that speaker in the same spot, so the same goes for the smaller phone as well. So overall, display and speaker quality, the display probably the best in the business. The speaker definitely not the best in the business, but definitely not a feature that would keep me from buying this phone. Next, I want to jump into some of the software features of the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge. Now, I'm not a huge fan of TouchWiz and Samsung's decisions to have sort of a large, clunky interface here with the app drawer on the side. And of course, you've got this weird structure where your apps do not get put in alphabetical order by default. You have to go up here and reorganize them. You'd see my Dropbox was way down there when I had added that app. That's super annoying overall, and I just don't like those UI choices, but it's something that can be fixed. And as you guys have seen, I have fixed that on my other two Galaxy S7 Edges. You can see here I've got Nova Launcher installed on this particular phone, and I've also got the Material Black theme installed and a custom wallpaper, and I've got black chosen from my app drawer. You can completely change the feel of the phone by installing a custom launcher like Nova Launcher Or if you're not into Nova Launcher, of course, there are other options. You guys know I also use Action Launcher 3, which you can see right here. I've got my Android background, this silver one that a lot of people liked a lot. And then Action Launcher 3 actually sort of themes your app drawer as well with the appropriate color here. I've got the gray on the white with the white icons. Now, you can sort of mix and match, so having the UI itself, the overall look of the UI is not that important. Now, at the end of the day, what Samsung has done is they have made TouchWiz quite a bit faster. You guys sort of saw in my original RAM management test video that the S7 Edge has no problem keeping 7 apps in the memory. Now, a lot of people ask me, is that true for up to 10 to 15 apps? Now, that depends on the apps that you're using, but if you're using super intensive apps like gaming apps, etc., you're not going to be able to keep 10 to 15 apps in the memory and still expect them to reload flawlessly. You're not going to get that. And that's very unfortunate, because you would think with 4 gigabytes of RAM that you would definitely be able to have that sort of functionality. But at the end of the day, what's important is that if you use your main apps like social media, YouTube Studio, YouTube, all of these apps that I use that are not super intensive, is whether or not those are going to reload if you have just a few apps or if you're multitasking between a few apps. And in general, the case there is no. One place where I've noticed that is an exception is YouTube Studio seems to like to reload every time I use it. You can see it's reloading right there, which is a little annoying. I don't particularly like that because I use that app a lot. But it just depends on the app. So RAM management, still somewhat of an issue, not the end of the world, and it has improved overall. But with 4 gigabytes of RAM, I would like to see a little bit better from Samsung in that department. Now, a few other things to mention, if I switch back to my other phone right here, is another thing you can do, as I said, to change the appearance is you can go up and install a theme. That's something you should explore. Again, I will link my video below with some tips on how to do this. The themes are right here. You can pick from various themes to install. That'll customize your phone, let you achieve things like saving battery life, etc. And then another thing people ask me about that customizes the look of the phone is you may want to change the DPI scaling, which basically changes how much text you can fit, or how large your images are going to appear, how large things are rendered on the screen. And if you actually check out the gold phone here, you can see the difference between having the default DPI scaling, which is on this phone, and then the one that I have here. You can see the notification bar takes up a little bit less room, which means you're going to get to see more notifications, have a little more room in your top bar. Now, another thing that you might want to do, which I've done on all of my phones, is to turn off the Quick Connect at the top of your notification tray. Choose Edit, and then right there at the bottom, you'll be able to toggle on or off the Quick Connect right there. So some people don't want that Quick Connect bar in there. You see, if you turn that on and then you go up here and save some of the settings here, you'll see the Quick Connect is actually there inside your notification panel. And some people don't like that. So of course I went in there and just went ahead and turned that off. And I think it makes it look a little cleaner with your notification shade overall. It gives it sort of a nicer look, especially if you also change the DPI scaling. So all the things that I've talked about so far actually apply to the S7 and the S7 Edge. The DPI scaling, theming, changing to a custom launcher, the RAM management issues, all of those are pretty much the same because the specs are very similar on both phones in those regards. Of course, the one thing that's different with the S7 Edge is you do get the Edge features, and I talked about this as well in my top 9 tips to set up your S7 or S7 Edge. You've got your Apps Edge right here, which you'll want to put your most used apps. Of course, you see I got Photos, Hangouts, Phone, Gallery, Falcon Pro, we've got Android Central, Instagram, Chrome, Gmail, and Dropbox. So a lot of apps that I just use every day on an everyday basis. Of course, you got your Task Edge. You can set any number of tasks, send a text message, take a selfie, view your bookmarks, take your pics with a panorama, add an alarm, etc. You've got People Edge here. I've got my mother, my fiance, my best friend, my grandmother. And then, of course, you've got your various news sources like Yahoo News, Yahoo Sports. I've got my favorite teams there: Cavaliers, Diamondbacks, Phoenix Suns, Pittsburgh Steelers. And you just go in here and customize these and set them up to your liking. Of course, you can change a lot of things. You can add extra things with the Edge panels here. You see you can choose from a variety of Edge panels that have things like the stock Samsung apps. You can choose the Yahoo panel itself. You can get stocks. You can change Milk Music, weather, various options. So you'll want to just go in here and sort of reorder this or add those to your liking. Of course, you can go into the actual settings menu, go to Edge screen. You can choose to turn the Edge panels on, your Edge feed, your Edge lighting, which will light up when people call you. You'll want to do all of these things overall just to set up sort of a customized experience. and get your most out of the S7 Edge that you possibly can. Overall, I think Samsung did a great job adding features to the Apps Edge, People Edge, Task Edge. They definitely gave us a lot more features than we had last year on the S6 Edge. Still not quite as many features as we had with the Note Edge, which they originally introduced the Edge screen. But some of those features I thought were a little bit unnecessary. And overall, Samsung has sort of refined this to the point that now I actually use the Edge screen features, and it's a convenient way to locate some of the apps and tasks that I want to use. So the bottom line on the software on the S7, the S7 Edge, it's still TouchWiz, of course, has some RAM management issues, which I've talked about in the past. We talked about last year, but they have improved the RAM management. You can keep more apps in your RAM. TouchWiz has very little, if no lag at all. The one place that you will see some lag, which I should have mentioned earlier, if you are running the stock launcher and you switch back and forth between the home screen and Flipboard, you're going to see some lag there, but even then it's really not that much lag. But overall, not too bad in terms of the lag. You can customize the UI in order to get the launcher to look the way you want, and that's the great thing about Android. Overall, a pretty good software experience, no glaring issues. If you just don't like TouchWiz, throw a custom launcher on there, throw a custom theme on there, and you're not going to have to look at the TouchWiz UI itself. Continuing right along in the same vein as the software, I now want to talk quickly about the gaming performance on the S7 and the S7 Edge. I've had absolutely no problems with gaming with the Snapdragon 820. I love playing games like this, like One More Dash. There's very little, if any, input lag and UI lag. I haven't had any drop frames. I've been able to play One More Dash, One More Line, Zigzag, some of my favorite games, Temple Run 2. Pretty much anything you want to play, even really graphic intensive games. Like racing games, first-person shooters, pretty much anything you can throw at the Snapdragon 820, it can handle it. Unlike last year with the Snapdragon 810, you also don't have to worry about there being any overheating issues. I haven't had any problems with that whatsoever. Been very, very impressed with the 820's gaming performance. One of the really impressive features that Samsung's added for gaming is the new game launcher, which you can see the icon was down there in the bottom left of the screen. You can do things like toggle on no alerts during the game, lock recent and back keys, minimize the game, take a screenshot, record, and you can also go to your game launcher settings from here, use the game tools, things like this. Sort of tells you all the various things you can do, and you can also sort of see where the position is going to be in the game itself. You can also toggle on the game launcher itself from here. You can also find that as a particular app inside of your app drawer. Here you've got the game launcher. It also shows you your games that are compatible. This is one I believe that T-Mobile sort of added by default. So of course you can toggle on all of these features, and also you can choose to save power during a game. Saving power will make the resolution a bit lower. It'll also make your frame rate 30 frames per second. So of course, if you want to actually save some power while you're gaming, that's an option. It's not something I would necessarily recommend though, because of course, if you try to save power while you're gaming, you're not going to get maximum performance. Overall, I've been super impressed with gaming on the S7, S7 Edge. The addition of the game tools to the already impressive performance of the Snapdragon 820 gives you a flawless experience when it comes to playing your favorite games on these new flagship phones from Samsung. Next, let's jump into the camera of the Galaxy S7 Edge and the S7. Now, the camera on here was actually changed significantly from the S6 and the S6 Edge, and the way in which it was changed is that the resolution was taken down from 16 megapixels to 12 megapixels, but they did actually increase the size of those individual pixels to let in more light. Now, of course, this is a similar approach we've seen with companies like HTC in the past, and also Google did this year with the Nexus 6P and the Nexus 5X. And of course, on the S7, as many have said, it has one of the best low light performances as a result. So overall, in terms of the camera, I'm incredibly impressed with the low light performance and overall just the amazing quickness of this camera. I mean, you can see how quickly you can take pictures. The shutter is just amazingly quick. And also you've got the same great features that you had before. You've got the auto mode, you've got your pro mode if you want to control a lot of things, of course, in the camera, like the ISO, like the white balance, etc. You've just got all of these great features: selective focus, panorama, video collage, live broadcast for YouTube, slow motion, virtual shot, food if you like to take pictures of your food, your dinner, your dessert, and hyperlapse mode. So a lot of great modes if you're interested in doing a lot with your camera phone. And also Samsung has long excelled at making some of the best cameras in the business. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Now, of course, I want to show you guys a few sample shots that I actually took Here's one of my favorite shots I took with the Galaxy S7 Edge. You can see these are my Jordan 11 lows infrared. This is shot inside of a pretty dark movie theater, and it was shot during the previews of a movie. So you know it's incredibly, incredibly dark, and it still gets great dynamic range, great color, very, very bright, really captures a lot of detail of the shoe. You can see some of the creasing and some of the yellowing on the sole. These are a pretty beat pair of 11s, but overall, very, very impressive performance from the camera. A few other shots that I took. This is a beautiful shot I took in relatively low light indoors, Yogurt, my Note 5, when I was out collecting some cases for the S7, the S7 Edge. This is a very nice shot I took in good lighting. And then I also did quite a few comparisons, comparing this camera to the camera on the Nexus 6P as well as the LG G4. Some of you probably remember the comparisons I did with my car outdoors. You had a lot of ambient light here from the light posts that were out in the parking lot here. This is when I went to the theater, and then also some pictures I took indoors in low light of the Pasta. Now, if you actually study those pictures carefully, it's really a matter of opinion whether or not people preferred the LG G4 versus the S7 Edge. And I would say overall, if you look at the photos, the ones that are in low light like this one, which you can check all of these out on my Instagram, my Google+, my Twitter, low light photos like this, the S7 Edge is far and away the best camera. But photos where you have a decent amount of light, like this picture that I took indoors of the Pasta, you can see the comparison against the G4 over on my Twitter. The G4 actually had a brighter photo, but it sacrificed some of the dynamic range and some of the color distinguishing features that you get from the Galaxy S7 Edge. So it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're talking about a camera when you're taking pictures in good light, I think the LG G4 is very, very close to being on par with the S7 Edge. But when it comes to low light, pretty much the S7 Edge and the S7 just blow everything else out of the water. Now, when it comes to video on this particular phone, I did take some video, of course, with the rear-facing camera. You guys probably saw my vlog video that I shot, that I posted up here with my 24-hour impressions. That was shot on the front-facing camera. I also shot some video on the rear-facing camera as well. If you guys saw my video on the Rhino Shield for the Galaxy Note 5, that was actually shot with the S7 Edge camera, so you guys can check that out and sort of see what you think. Overall, I was super impressed with the ability of the camera to shoot in 4K, to shoot really high-quality 1080p video. It has super fast focus. The autofocus just switches back and forth like crazy. If you're going to get a phone, you want to really shoot quality video and take quality still photos, this is definitely one to go with. I would even go so far as to say if you're on a real budget, you could actually start your own YouTube channel and make really quality videos just with the S7 or S7 Edge camera. So the camera is definitely a strong point. Is it a whole lot better than last year? That's a question I've gotten, and it really depends on what you prefer. If you're someone who takes a lot of photos indoors with low light, like I mentioned, if you're going to take those kind of photos, I think the S7 Edge is definitely the best camera. If you want more detail outside in good lighting or under studio lights, like this photo I took right here, then the S6 Edge and the Note 5 and the S6 Edge Plus, they do have a little more detail because of the 16 megapixel sensor, but they don't perform nearly as well in low light. So at the end of the day, I definitely prefer the S7 Edge camera because I do take a lot of pictures in low light with my camera because those are just sort of the natural places that we are with our phones. We're indoors, we're at movie theaters, you're in a dark room and you want to capture a photo quickly. If I have a good lighting, I'm going to use my camera that I use, my a6300 that I have, my Sony RX100 Mark IV. I'll use one of my good cameras if I know I'm going to have good lighting. But the phone really should excel in low lighting, and that's exactly what the S7 and S7 Edge do. I just want to end the video with a few odds and ends and then talk quickly about the price, the accessories, and the overall value of the phone. Now, one thing that I didn't really fit in anywhere else was the fingerprint scanner. You guys saw me do a fingerprint scanner comparison with this versus the Note 5, 6P, and the iPhone 6s Plus. I'm very impressed with the fingerprint scanner on here. You can press it and you can get right into the phone very, very quickly. I still think the Nexus 6P is a bit quicker because I don't actually have to press a button. I just rest my finger on the back and it's there. But I haven't had very, very few problems with the S7 Edge fingerprint scanner. It's very, very convenient. The one thing that, of course, I would love is that since I have the always-on display already there, I should be able to just rest my finger here and it'll take me right in. That'd be one feature I'd recommend for Samsung to add. But the accuracy, the consistency of this fingerprint scanner is very, very impressive. Now, of course, the next thing to talk about is the number of accessories available for this phone, the pricing, and then sort of the overall value. Now, the Samsung S series, the Galaxy S series, is great because if you buy one of these two phones, you're going to have a lot of accessories to choose from. You guys have seen all the cases that I've done. I'm going to do a case roundup for these phones as well coming up soon. There's just so much to choose from accessory-wise, and that's why you buy a Samsung or you buy an iPhone. They just have a lot more possibilities if you like accessories, which I do, than something like Motorola or LG. There just aren't as many accessories out there. So I think that's something to keep in mind, something that few people mention, but definitely something to keep in mind when you decide on an Android phone. The number of accessories you're going to have is going to be a lot more when you're talking about an S7 or an S7 Edge. Now the last thing, of course, is the price. The Galaxy S7 is priced between $600 and $690 depending on where you get it, carrier, unlocked, etc. The S7 Edge is priced between $700 and $800 depending on where you get it, from a carrier, unlocked, etc. And I think they're very, very expensive phones, but they offer a great value for what you get at the end of the day. So if you want to pick up one of these phones and you have the money, either you can put it on a carrier payment plan or you can buy one outright. I think it's a great phone if you want the top tier specs. Now, if you don't need that, there are a lot more phones in Android right now that are going to be a better value for you. You've got the Honor 5X, you got the Nexus 6P. Depending on what price range you're looking in, Android has something for everybody these days. But if you want the best overall phone and you don't mind paying for it, either in payments or outright, if you have the money and you want the best phone you can buy today, I would say the Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge are the best choices for Android today. They're the fastest, the best camera in low light. They've got a lot of extra great features. The micro SD slot is back. The battery life is improved. Overall, I definitely recommend these phones if you're in the market for one of these top tier devices. Now, of course, there are a few other things to keep in mind. You do have two variants of these phones. You've got the Snapdragon 820 versus the Exynos version. If you're looking to buy on T-Mobile or AT&T, I highly recommend you get the international Exynos version, as that is now able to be rooted. The Snapdragon 820 will likely not be able to be rooted at all. So Max actually has a tutorial, Max Lee. I'll drop a link below to how to root the international model. So you can buy those international models for $600 for the S7, $700 for the S7 Edge on eBay still, I believe, maybe even for the same price on Amazon. I will drop those links below as well. So these are my full review of the S7 and S7 Edge, my final thoughts. I definitely recommend them if you're in the top tier market. They are both hard to beat, and you got two sizes to choose from. So if you guys have any questions for me on either of the two phones, drop a comment below. I'll definitely get back to you guys. That's one thing you can always count on from me. I will reply to your comments. I try to do that even as my channel is getting larger and larger. Find me over at my website, dopetechdaily.com. Find me on Instagram, Twitter, Google+, the links in the description. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.